In addition to visual indicators like link lights, there are other types of network services that we need to be familiar with. We talked about physical connectivity. Well, physical connectivity we can establish using ping. So if we establish physical connectivity using ping, using an IP address, then we know that at least everything else below that is working, that all the hardware is working and that the cable is working. In other words, we're sort of in the middle once we get a ping. Now, if what we're trying to do is establish host name resolution, then instead of pinging the IP address, we would ping the host name. So we can establish physical connectivity. We can establish connectivity to different types of servers just by pinging that server name, like a file server or a print server. If we have a problem with authentication, that's an issue of are we logged in with the right password? Do we have the right username and password to do whatever it is we're trying to do? Sometimes you just press Control-Alt-Delete and see how you're logged in. It depends on what operating system you're on as to what Control-Alt-Delete does, but and how it's set up on some of the newer operating systems. But sometimes you can press Control-Alt-Delete, see whether you're logged in as a domain admin or whether you're logged in as local, because sometimes the authentication could be part of troubleshooting network services. We're not logged in like we think we are. Could be a protocol. In regard to protocol, it's just really configuration. Is TCP/IP configured properly? Are there other protocols that are in the system that don't need to be? For example, if someone was experimenting with NWLink, IPX, SPX, if they were experimenting with NetBEUI and they aren't really using it anymore, but it's still in the system, then a good best practices troubleshooting idea is to take that information out. In other words, take that protocol out so that the system isn't having to work with that anymore and it's not pulling down the resources. And then one of the objectives of the test in the domain 4 is that we should know about small office, home office routers. And really the only thing to know about that is that if we're setting up a home office, basically what we're wanting to do is we're setting up a private address on the inside. We want to keep our addresses private on the inside. Then we want that router to get the address from our ISP. And depending on the router, depending on where you buy that, the configuration can be almost automatic. In other words, the software that comes with, for example, a Linksys router will help you to hook up to your ISP and have one side of that router be firewalled and be protecting you from the internet and getting the address from the ISP. And the other side of the router, you can plug in whatever you want to, and you can plug in multiple computers. You can even do that with wireless routers. So troubleshooting network services is a matter of understanding all of what we've talked about. And this chapter 4, domain 4, as you'll see, it's kind of it's taking all the information that we've talked about and then applying it. And that's really what troubleshooting is all about. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what if we were to add or remove services from a network. How, as we talked about at the beginning of this training, we said that some services are necessary sometimes, but they're not necessarily always necessary. Remember, we talked about that. And this is what we're going to get into. Now that we understand a little bit more about some of these services, about how all the network operates, now we're going to take a look at some of the services that the network uses and when they might be necessary, when they might not be as necessary.